Church here, and welcome to the Game Grinder, and today we're doing another unboxing video, and as the title states, this is for The Last of Us Part 2 Collector's Edition. Now, before we jump into that, I just wanted to share a little bit about my history with The Last of Us. Now, the original Last of Us was released in 2011 exclusively on the PlayStation 3, and turned out to be my favorite PS3 exclusive and one of my favorite games from the last generation. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get the full collector's edition for The Last of Us. There was a lot of questions if the game was going to be as great as it was. At the time, I wasn't as fortunate to have the income that I did, so I couldn't drop the extra money, but I did get the Last of Us Survival Edition, which is pretty neat. Comes with a art book, issue of the American Dream comic, and yeah, so there's that. And then, of course, I had to get The Last of Us Remastered for the PlayStation 4, which is just looks a little bit better. The game looks great originally, so it was interesting to see how it was improved, and it was kind of hard to say if it was or not. I think the game looks great either way, but I've played through the original Last of Us 3 times, and I've played through the Left Behind DLC once. So needless to say, I am incredibly excited for The Last of Us Part 2. I'm hoping this game lives up to what the first game was. Now, I can't imagine it's going to be better than the first game, but if it's almost as good, then I will be very satisfied. For anybody who's not familiar with what The Last of Us is, basically it is kind of a dramatic or cinematic sort of a survival horror game. Basically, it's in a post-apocalyptic setting. It's not zombies, but they are essentially people infected by a real-life plant spore. You've possibly seen videos on it before about this plant spore that will infect, say, like crickets or something, and it will actually take control of them. And this is kind of based on that concept, so this is apocalypse, breakdown of society. First game followed Joel and Ellie as they did the thing that they were trying to do. I don't want to say too much for those who haven't played the game. If there's people out there who don't actually want to play the game but want to enjoy the story, I highly recommend going on YouTube and look up The Last of Us the movie. There's a couple people who have edited together essentially like a 6-hour or so movie version of The Last of Us, which cuts out some of the gameplay but still shows a lot of what you would experience throughout the game, and I think it's a great secondary way to enjoy the game, and I would definitely recommend it. I've actually watched that a couple times myself. And the sequel, I don't know a ton about what's going on. I basically saw the original 2 trailers that they released for the game, and then I pretty much did media blackout because I want to enjoy this game as spoiler-free as possible. I know this one focuses on Ellie herself. I don't know if there's the 2-person kind of cooperative single-player experience that the first game was, where we played as Joel with Ellie as the kind of AI-controlled companion. But this is a few years after the events of the first game, and I guess I will find out what happens. So enough about that. Let's go ahead and check out The Last of Us Part 2 Collector's Edition. So again, we are on this trend of massive collector's editions, which, I guess it is what it is. As long as the statue's a decent size, I don't mind. Where some of these boxes, they just seem like they're making them big for the sake of making big collector's editions. I am currently have a plan to add new space in my room so I can put all these big boxes kind of out of the way because they take up too much space and I don't really have space for them. Problem of a collector, I guess. But anyways, the box is pretty simple there. We have kind of the main promotional art on the front, and then not much on the side. Just says Last of Us Part 2, and then of course what it comes with on the back there. So I'm gonna go ahead and open this up and we will check out what comes with this. Alright, so of course we have a box within a box. This inner box is a little bit more simple. Just says The Last of Us Part 2 on there, and let's open that box up. Fortunately, it's a nice thick cardboard, which is always good when they don't cheap out. For some reason, it was incredibly difficult to get it out of the outer box. So let's go ahead and go through what we got here. So first thing up is the art of The Last of Us Part 2. Of course, a great staple for any collector's edition. And of course, as it always goes, we have development art, concept art, stuff like that. I won't look through this in detail now as, like I said, I don't really want to experience spoilers. So we'll check that out once I finish the game. And I took the liberty of removing the cellophane wrap on this, but then we have The Last of Us Part 2 Steelbook, and I always enjoy Steelbooks. And we have Ellie, and I am not exactly sure who this other character is. I think that might be the girlfriend, but I will find out. And this also comes with some digital content, PlayStation Network avatars, PlayStation 4 dynamic theme, digital soundtrack, and digital mini art book from Dark Horse. And then our next item here is a interesting piece. This is Last of Us Part 2, and I think this is another kind of like little art postcard deal or something. A little, not exactly sure what you would call this, but there is some text here and I'm not sure if that's a screenshot or just a kind of like a painting. But I will share what it says in here because I think these little commentaries from developers are kind of interesting. And it says, "What would you do if someone you loved was the victim of a cruel and violent act? How easily could one's mind tip towards violent retribution? How far would you go to bring the people responsible to justice? If you were successful, how would it change you? Would you ever be the same?" With The Last of Us Part 2, we set out to create an experience that explores these difficult questions, the darkest side of human nature, and the vicious cycle of violence that we witness in the world around us on a daily basis. The result is a game crafted by hundreds of developers that push themselves to create something more than just mere entertainment. A game that we're incredibly proud of, and we hope will enthrall you and challenge your own views of justice and empathy. On behalf of everyone at Naughty Dog, we want to thank you for embarking on this journey with us. Neil Druckmann, director of The Last of Us Part 2. And I think that is a pretty interesting intro to the game. Kind of gives you the concept there where it's less survival as the first one was. And kind of puts a little twist on the narrative. And then delving further into our collector's edition here, we have some more goodies. So first thing up here is a leather bracelet with a little charm on it. I'm not going to pull this out of the packaging. I believe this is, I'm assuming, Ellie's charm in Part 2, but we will find out. So that is kind of neat. And then we also have a little pin collection. I'm not much on pins myself, but hey, I always enjoy when things are included in collector's editions, so no complaints there. And then probably my least favorite of all things included in collector's editions are sticker sets. I'm not a sticker guy. These will never come out of the package and never be used, but I guess it is something, again, additional, so that is that. And then we have the box within a box within a box, and that is another box, and that is The Last of Us Part 2. This is going to be the statue that comes with this collector's edition, and honestly, the highlight of it and why I purchased this collector's edition. So let me go ahead and pull that out, and we can check it out. All right, and here we go, and this is a very sizable statue of Ellie from Last of Us Part 2. Yeah, I think this is pretty nice, pretty detailed. I'll try to get some good shots here of some of those elements. This is her kind of relaxing with a guitar that was shown in, I believe, the original trailer. This is kind of a consistent style recently with a lot of Sony exclusive collector's editions with kind of this solid, somewhat hollow plastic base. It's not cheap by any means, but like a few of my other collector's editions are kind of this style, so that is cool with me. It looks great. A lot of detail here. As you can see, they did a very good job on this. Lots of nice little pieces here, nothing removable. And I wish I could say I could add this to the Last of Us 1 collector's edition that came with a very cool statue of Joel and Ellie. But that is unfortunately going to be one of my, I guess, video game grails that I hope to acquire someday. And It's unlikely to happen for some time because it is pretty expensive and relatively rare from what I've seen when I've checked online in the past. But I am happy to have this. There was actually another edition of the collector's edition that actually came with Ellie's backpack as well. But the price for a backpack, and I wasn't going to use the backpack or anything, so decided to go with this one. I'm very happy with this collector's edition. So with that said, of course, I would be very curious to hear your thoughts. Has everybody else played The Last of Us? I really hope you have, because it is an amazing game. It's one of my favorite games ever. And do you plan on playing The Last of Us Part 2? What did you think about this collector's edition? How about that statue? Pretty decent. And I cannot wait to dive into this game. So again, please let me know your thoughts, and then always thank you very much for watching, and I will talk to you next time on the Game Grinder.